Thomas, I don't got all day here. Let's get a move on.
Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So those of you who have been following my channel for a while will know I've reviewed several survival horror games in the past. Today we're going to be looking at a game that was actually a launch title for the Xbox 360 back in 2005, and one that I've had in my collection for a long time, but never actually got round to playing until now. As you can tell by the title, the game is Condemned Criminal Origins, released as I mentioned in 2005, and developed by Monolith Productions. On a side note, later this year will actually be the 20th anniversary of the game, so yeah, not only is this game nearly 20 years old, but so is the Xbox 360. Crazy to think about. So Condemned Criminal Origins is a pretty interesting entry in the survival horror genre, and it's one that was quite ambitious for its time, most likely being made to show off the power of the new 7th generation hardware. And I'd say that they did that for the most part, making a game that was very technically impressive for the time, as well as incredibly atmospheric. But at the same time, it's a game that I do have some mixed feelings about, and it certainly has a few glaring limitations. Let's talk about it. Before I go any further, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, since it really helps the channel, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. Let's get started with the review. So the game is essentially a first-person psychological thriller, with first-person shooting and survival horror elements. The story of the game is actually quite an interesting one, and it's not your typical kind of story for a game like this, being more grounded in reality than your average horror game, though it does certainly have some implied supernatural elements. You play as Ethan Thomas, a semi-famous FBI agent who is working for the Serial Crime Unit, based in a fictional American city named Metro City. It's implied throughout the game that Ethan is some sort of psychic, being able to see visions of nearby crimes as they take place, as well as sense the actions of serial killers. This is never clearly explained, and again it's mostly implied. Due to his abilities, Ethan has the most successful record in the Bureau, solving numerous cases, and it's also explained early on there has been a recent surge in violent crime across the city, as well as an increase in serial killer activity. Vagrants have also been acting particularly hostile, for no apparent reason. You start the game off in a derelict building. Ethan is sent to the scene of a recent homicide to investigate the crime. Here he comes across two local police detectives who explain the situation to him.
14, report in. Have the feds arrived?
Becker here. FBI on the scene. Over and out.
Copy that.
Agent Thomas, this is Officer Becker. Becker found the body on patrol.
Agent?
Here you get a useful tutorial which introduces you to the overall controls and gameplay. You'll notice right off the bat that this game is dark, and I mean very dark, and it pretty much takes place exclusively at night. The first item you receive, which you'll be relying on the entire game, is the flashlight. This of course allows you to navigate your way through the environments, and do some investigating as and when required. Thankfully the flashlight seems to have unlimited battery, so you don't have to ration its use. By all means keep it on at all times, although surprisingly it is implemented into the combat, with enemies reacting to it. During the tutorial you're introduced to the detective aspect of the game, which I'd say takes up about half of the game, and you're of course introduced to the combat. Once the tutorial is over, Ethan is held at gunpoint by a mysterious suspect who tells him they're both on the same path to righteousness, before shooting the two cops with Ethan's own gun, essentially pinning the murders on him, before tossing him through a window.
And the path takes strange turns.
Police! Drop the weapon now!
Be ready for death, Agent Thomas. It shall come visiting again.
When Ethan wakes up, he's contacted by a man named Malcolm Van Horn, who informs him that the police are looking for Ethan, and he's wanted for the murders of the 2 cops.
Who are you? What is going on?
Calm yourself. My name is Malcolm Van Horn. I was a great friend of your father's.
Yes, I remember you a long time ago, but why are you here now?
Last night, well, I was nearby. An unfortunate scene. You did your best, but it could not be helped.
The detectives.
They're dead. Shot with your weapon. And you will be blamed for their deaths.
Ridiculous. I'll just tell them.
What? Tell them the truth? They have already decided the truth.
This is insane. I can't just give up the Bureau.
It's already been taken from you. Now join me and help yourself.
Ethan will need to traverse the area, keeping a low profile, avoiding the cops and trying to clear his name by finding and exposing the real killer, tracing his steps and attempting to bring him to justice. As the game goes on, Ethan will begin to seemingly lose his mind, having hallucinations and blacking out at various stages. As I mentioned before, it's implied that Ethan is some sort of psychic. This allows him to see some of the actions of the serial killer in question, and it allows him to find the crime scenes he's looking for. As I mentioned before, it's a pretty interesting story, and you're going to want to see it through to the end. There are plenty of cutscenes to convey the story throughout, as well as plenty of dialogue during levels, and the writing and voice acting is relatively good. The overall formula of the game is relatively simple. You basically explore a dark, linear level, usually some sort of abandoned building or underground area, dodging and defeating enemies, solving crimes, hunting down the serial killer and trying to clear Ethan's name. The majority of the game consists of combat, and I'd say the combat is decent enough, and it takes a surprising amount of skill to play. The majority of the game you'll be relying on melee combat. The game has a handful of guns, however the ammo is severely limited and the guns themselves are few and far between. Thankfully there are melee weapons all over the place. You can pick these up at any time and use them to strike enemies, and these all have their own unique stats, such as reach, damage, speed and effectiveness at blocking. Speaking of blocking, this is a vital aspect of combat. If an enemy goes to strike you, a well-timed block can interrupt them. You can also step backwards and avoid attacks entirely. In addition to the melee weapons, you can also kick enemies at any time. This is less effective than the melee attacks, but much quicker, and allows you to keep enemies at bay, as well as to finish an enemy off while they're down, so they don't get back up and attack you. If you don't have time to smash an enemy over the head with a sledgehammer, then just whack them with a front kick. This kinda reminded me of the mighty foot from Duke Nukem 3D for some reason. I mentioned before how you can pick up any melee weapon you find around the levels. Enemies can actually do this too, so grab them first if you can. The game also has weapon durability, so after a certain amount of swings, the melee weapons will break and you'll need to find a replacement. Thankfully this never becomes tedious, since the weapons are quite plentiful. There will pretty much always be something to pick up and use. You actually have 2 different classes of melee weapons. You have the basic ones, such as metal pipes, wooden planks, locker doors, signs and things of that nature, that are pretty much only useful in combat. And you have large tools which, in addition to being used in combat, are also implemented into the level design. For example, at certain stages of the game you will need to open doors or remove barriers to progress, and you will occasionally need to do a bit of backtracking. There may be a particular door that you need a particular melee weapon to break open, such as a fire axe or a sledgehammer, or perhaps a locker that needs to be pried open with a crowbar. This means you will of course have to keep an eye out for these weapons, as it can be quite easy to miss them. Thankfully, due to the overall linear level design, it won't take you long to find them, even if you do have to do a bit of backtracking. I did find this a little bit annoying at times, since the game only lets you carry one weapon at a time, meaning if you have a gun with plenty of ammo, you'll have to put it down to instead take the melee weapon you need, meaning you'll have to do even more backtracking than you would otherwise to pick the gun up again. I don't understand why I couldn't carry 2 weapons. I mean, if I'm carrying a handgun, I should be able to holster it, right? Also, if I can open a door with a fire axe, why can't I do so with a sledgehammer? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they have to be so specific. So yeah, that's one annoying thing about the game. It's not a major issue, but it's something that made the game a bit frustrating at times. Speaking of guns, as I mentioned before, there are a bunch of them in the game. You can usually loot them from fallen enemies and use them till the ammo runs out. Sadly, there's no way to reload any of the guns. Once the ammo runs out, you'll simply need to find a replacement. The guns obviously make combat significantly easier, since you can take out enemies from long range and avoid having to slug it out with them. Just remember to be very conservative with your ammo, particularly on higher difficulties. The guns you have are a 9mm pistol, a revolver, a shotgun, a sawn-off shotgun, a machine gun, and very late in the game you get a rifle. Again, these won't last long when you find them due to the limited ammo, so use them well. Aside from the melee weapons and the guns, another weapon you get is a stun gun. You acquire this early in the game and it allows you to shock enemies, causing them to seize up, giving you a short chance to attack them, or grab their weapon off them. For obvious reasons, this can be very useful, and can bail you out in a difficult fight. Later in the game you actually unlock a super stun gun which is more effective. It makes the combat significantly easier. So yeah, the game's combat is relatively varied and fun, and it takes a lot of skill to play. Aside from weapon variety, you also have a bit of enemy variety. Throughout the game you take on crazed humans of various kinds, most of which appear to be demon possessed. The main enemy type is the addicts. These are basically just overly aggressive humans who mostly attack you with melee weapons. There are several variants of these depending on the particular level you're playing. You have these larger, more durable enemies who usually attack you with sledgehammers, and these take a while to bring down. They basically reminded me of the sledgehammer guy from Clock Tower 3. Make good use of the stun gun against those. There are also these smaller, more ghoulish enemies that you encounter from time to time. Enemies that will crawl around and sneak up on you, attacking you from all angles, not to mention causing you to waste your ammo. Again, there are several variants of these throughout the game. There's a particular section of the game where you're in an abandoned department store, and the place is filled with these creepy mannequins. Only issue is, some of the mannequins are actually enemies in disguise, who will creep up on you and attack you when you're not looking. This causes you to get paranoid, and it's genuinely scary. Probably the scariest part of the entire game, really atmospheric and memorable. I found myself attacking every mannequin in sight from time to time, just in case it was an enemy in disguise. What I noticed about the combat is the surprisingly sophisticated AI. Enemies will constantly try to outwit you. They do this by taking cover, running away, leading you into traps and flanking you. They also appear to use the environment to their advantage here and there, causing you to get trapped in a vulnerable position, or get ganged up on. Enemies will also appear to act differently depending on which weapon they have equipped. As I mentioned before, if there's a weapon nearby, then an enemy will usually grab it and start attacking you. If they have a gun, they will take cover and try to shoot you. For a game released in 2005, the AI is actually mind-blowing. There are games released today that don't have enemy AI this good. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the game's combat. As I said before, it's surprisingly complex for the time, and I'd say that in many ways it still holds up today. The other main aspect of the game, and something that wasn't well received at the time, at least by mainstream critics, is of course the detective work. This is quite similar to how it worked in the Batman Arkham games that came several years later. I suspect they may have been partially inspired by this. At various stages of the game, you will come across a crime scene. Ethan will at all times carry some high-tech police equipment that will allow him to examine evidence, and you get a short minigame that allows you to interact with the crime scene. Once you arrive at the crime scene, the game will prompt you to use a specific tool, and the tools that you have are a UV light, as well as a laser light, a spectrometer, a sampler, and a 3D scanner. You also have a digital camera which allows you to photograph evidence to send to your colleague Rosa, who acts as your guy in the chair, I guess. She will go back and forth with you over the phone and help you do some investigating, as well as some further research into the evidence you find.
Just a sec. Strangled by hand. Very forceful. Finger marks clear, except bruise intensity indicates the killer's right-handed and missing the index finger on that hand. There must must be something more. Something we're not seeing.
These tools allow you to examine things that you couldn't see otherwise, such as blood, footprints, hidden messages, DNA evidence, following trails, tracking odors, examining injuries and methods used by killers, and things of that nature. And it basically does its bit to break up the monotony of the game's combat, and make you feel like a genuine detective, going over the forensic evidence and things like that. These detective sections actually got a lot of criticism when the game came out, as I mentioned before, mostly due to the overall simplicity of them, but me personally, I don't mind them. I think if they were more complex and finicky, it would have made them a bit of a drag. At very least, as I mentioned before, they add some much needed variety to the game, because aside from these sections, the game is mostly combat. Aside from all that, the game also has a few boss battles, though these are nothing special. Bit of a disappointment if you ask me. They're basically just slightly larger, slightly more durable versions of the other enemy types, and they don't take much strategy to bring down. There are also less than a handful of them, so it's barely even worth talking about if truth be told. So yeah, that basically sums up the main game. It's a pretty fun, pretty complex, and pretty well made survival horror game that's extremely tense and atmospheric. The game does have a bit of location variety, but not much to be honest. Again, you get a department store, a subway, sewers, an abandoned farm, a creepy old house, a library, and things of that nature. It's all extremely dark and gloomy. I had fun with the game while it lasted, but unfortunately the game is incredibly short. You could probably complete it in just a few hours if you know what you're doing, and if truth be told, there isn't really much replay value. I don't see you having the urge to replay afterwards, not unless you want to unlock all the achievements or bonus features. Speaking of, there are quite a few collectibles to find in the levels. For example, you have these dead birds. There are 6 of these per level, which are usually quite easy to find, though a few of them are easy to miss. Just keep an eye out for them. There are also 3 metal pieces in some levels which are a bit more well hidden, as well as these Xbox 360s that you randomly come across from time to time. A lot of these collectibles will instantly gain you an achievement, if you care about those. As far as the bonus unlocks, you get quite a few of these, and these are actually quite interesting in my opinion. You of course get a whole bunch of concept art to look at from the game's menu. There are a lot of these, and they usually consist of the game's character models and things like that. Some of these actually look really creepy. Aside from the concept art, there are also a bunch of short movies to watch, most notably some beta footage and test footage from the game's development. I actually really enjoyed watching these. It's always fun to get a look at the behind the scenes stuff, getting an idea of how the game was made. Features like this are always appreciated by me. So that pretty much sums up my thoughts on Condemned Criminal Origins. It's a pretty good survival horror game for the time, and it's one that I'd certainly recommend you check out, if you're interested in the genre. As I mentioned before, it's a lot more realistic and gritty than your average horror game, and I think that does its bit to add to the overall atmosphere. At the same time though, it's a very short game, and it's relatively limited in what it has to offer, which is a shame. But I enjoyed the experience nonetheless. I think the graphics and presentation are about as good as they could have been also, though I do think the soundtrack could have been a bit better. But I reckon I'm nitpicking at this point. I give Condemned Criminal Origins a solid and well-deserved 8 out of 10. If you like classic survival horror games with a bit more realism, then I could see you really enjoying this. There was a sequel to this game released in 2008, but at the time of this recording I've never played it. Let me know in the comment section if you want to see me review the sequel. I'm certainly open to the idea. Thanks for watching guys, I really enjoyed checking out Condemned Criminal Origins. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Again, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this one. Stay tuned for more retrospective video game reviews. Once again, I have a lot of reviews coming to the channel in the near future. Thanks for watching and God bless.